not wet yet, but certainly a bit greasy in spots. Feels like there's a lot of high-speed compression on this shock, which isn't what I want. I want more friendly on the high-speed compression, so I can be a little more in charge with the low-speed compression. So kind of looking at air versus coil, but also just how this bike responds to a coil. We've got the standard link back on. I've just finished testing with the Cascade link, which is super progressive. Maybe even still a little bit too progressive for even a coil, I think. But standard link, Marzocchi Bomber, CR coil, 475 spring is what I've settled on. Now I started on the 450 spring. It was a little bit soft. It was slow to climb, couldn't carry speed on it, it got caught up on every bump, didn't matter how stiff I ran the fork to kind of counter and try and drag me down the trails. The back end was just getting caught in holes, caught in bumps, and really, really rough when you go through real chundery stuff. So too soft is kind of similar to too hard. Too firm is too harsh just off the top, like it's too harsh everywhere. Too soft is in and out of the travel and harsh. Like it's you're always boom, you're going deep and then whack whack, and then you're shallow and it's soft, and then you're deep and whack whack, and you're always up and down and oscillating through the travel. So 450 was too soft. 475 was certainly better. Carried speed better, climbed better, got okay on the climbs. A little bit choppy on real fast stuff, and I wasn't sure what the reason for it, what the stimulus was for that. 500 spring, went to a 500 spring, got more speed, carried more speed on the flat descents, on the smoother descents, or smoother parts of the descent. But as soon as you hit choppy stuff, it was really instead of me, my feet staying in on the pedals and the bike doing this, it was giving me this. So the suspension was too strong to give way, and it was just launching me off the pedals every time. So 500 was too stiff, and to be honest, it didn't climb any better. It didn't feel like it was much more efficient on the climbs. It kind of, and I think that was due to compliance. I think the 500 was less compliant and wasn't. And I think maybe there's a sweet spot of efficiency with maybe anti-squat and anti-rise. I don't really delve too deep into those terms and how they affect the bike. I'm more of just a feel person. I go by feel and try and translate the maths of what I feel. So the 500 didn't feel really more efficient. It just felt quicker on the smooth descents, too high in the sag, standing up too much, and too choppy, and too hard to steer. You can't hold on to it. You can't change direction and do much body language because you're spending all your time putting tension through the bike, holding onto it. So back to the 475, a little bit of fiddling around with the compression. Ended up with 4 clicks of compression. 5's a little bit much, but still good. Gives you heaps to push against, so it just starts to deaden it a little bit and starts to affect it a little bit negatively for the speeds and the type of trails that I'm riding. Really, really high speed race scenario, I'd probably go an extra click for that extra push because I'm precise, I know my lines and all that stuff. Back to 475. Climbing's killer. It feels, I did a huge, hence the night lights. I did a huge night ride last night, massive mission. Pretty much just went and got lost in these hills here, rode trails that I've never ridden before, and rode a descent that was so gnarly, so rocky, steep, and relentlessly long. I won't say where it is because I don't think it's actually legal. I'm almost sure it's not legal. I'm pretty sure it's a walking trail, but at night, different game. So fork ran it at 94 psi. It felt mint. It felt really good. If anything, maybe a little firm, but felt really good, keeping me up and matching how the rear feels. Now this shock, I'm happy with everything. Ride height I can deal with. It's a little high in the ride height, but it's supple enough that I don't really have to worry about it, and I can sit down. And I've got a longer dropper now, so I can sit this a little deeper in. This is the 180mm one-up dropper, which I'll review soon. I've got some pros and cons about that. It felt good enough, and it's killer. It's so compliant everywhere except for fast hits. Fast hits, it feels like the high-speed compression is way too jacked up. It's way too stiff. So there's no give on those high-speed hits. The mid-speed and lower speed, it opens up nicely, and the compression does a good job there, and the spring does a good job there. But on anything fast, you can be motoring through a trail and not have hit any fast bumps and just building confidence, like, oh, this back end is a carpet, it feels so good. And then you come through a spot where there's a couple of square edges and you're coming in quick, and it's just bang, bang, it just kills you. It just absolutely, if you're not ready for it, it scares you. Like, it's like, it shocks you. Like, it rattles you. You really got to hold on through that stuff. So, to me, that's what's been the way I fix that. If I was on Float X2, it's exactly how you get from a Float X2 with too high a high-speed compression. So you back that off a bit, and it goes away completely. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to back that high-speed compression off, but there's only a low-speed compression adjuster. It's a mid-compression tune, mid-rebound tune on this. So I'm hoping that they can open it up, change that high-speed compression part, so that initial compression, that real fast compression, I'm hoping they can open that up a bit, make it a little bit lighter without really changing too much on the rest of the shop, because it feels good otherwise. So that's where I'm at the moment. Overall coil on this bike, if I can get this running like I just said, getting that suspension, the compression stroke smoothed out a little bit, I'll definitely stick with the coil. Doesn't feel much heavier, to be honest. I mean, I've got the lights on and stuff now, but riding it doesn't feel any heavier. It feels fine. It feels absolutely fine, especially with the SLS spring. It feels great. It slays. It's got it's got an adequate cornering position. I can definitely deal with that, and I've got my fork feeling good. Just need that compression fixed. So comparing it to the air shock, it's definitely more sensitive. It's obviously more sensitive, but not by a lot. But the harsh hits are nowhere near the compliance I get with the Super Deluxe. So to get this exact same setup to feeling exactly like this, I have to run the Super Deluxe with 2 negative bands in the magnet and 2 tokens in the positive. So that gives me a ride height about 29%, nearly 30, probably 29%. So it's a little higher in the ride than I'd like. And the only place that really affects me is steep trails. So I have to sit a little bit more off the back and put my seat down a little bit more on the steep trails, just so I can slay. So comparatively, for the same setup, I can definitely reach the same compliance, or the very, very similar compliance with the Super Deluxe, but I can't have the consistency. I can't just get on and ride it. The Super Deluxe, I have to check the air. If it's a hot day, take some air out. If it's a cool day, put some air in. Just check my air at the start of every ride, which is what I do anyway. The little bit of an inconvenience of air, but if you know how to tune it, air's killer. If you don't know how to tune it, you're going to be lost, and you're much, much better off with a coil. So, people say that the coil doesn't work on this bike. I disagree. I absolutely disagree. 475 for my weight. Now, comparing this to the Cascade, 475 on the Cascade felt a little bit. It felt like I should have had a 485 on the Cascade link. So 475 was a little bit soft, and this 475 on this is a little hard. So, and to put that in context with the air shocks, so the Super Lux, I was running 180 with the standard link, 180 psi, and with the Cascade link, I was having to run 200 psi. So you have to run a little bit firmer spring, a little bit higher spring rate, ever so slightly, to get the same feeling. And I found I had to run more compression with the Cascade link as well. So standard link, a little bit less compression is needed, and a little bit less spring rate is needed. Have no problems with it falling through the travel, have no problems with it. It looks like it's got plenty of support. 450, I'd bottom it out. 400's too soft anyway. 500's too harsh. 475's pretty much on the sweet spot. I might even be able to back that off to half a turn to get that ride height a little bit lower, but I don't want it to go too soft. Once it starts going soft, it'll start dropping into the hits a bit more and taking the hits instead of floating over them. So it's floating over the hits. If the suspension is nice and stiff and stays high in the travel, once you start going a bit deeper into the travel, it starts taking the hits. When you get to a 450, you're really bang, you're hitting every hit, so you're not staying on top of it. So a stiffer spring generally keeps you on top of everything, but too stiff will push you over, push it off of the back end. It'll be going like this instead of just the suspension coming up and down and you staying in your position. So that's enough rambling about that. I'll send this shock off, see if I can get it dialed. I'll probably send the Superlux off to get a service as well, because that's due for a service. And then whichever shock, if this comes back and it lands spot on with how I want, I'll sell the Superlux. I might keep the DPX2 to go with the bike. I don't know yet. We'll see what goes. But either way, I've got 3 shocks for this bike now, all 205/65. So if you're interested in one of those shocks, hit me up and maybe you can twist my arm to sell it. But I'll get that other one serviced. The DPX2 is fresh. These two will be fresh, and we'll continue.